Hi, I'm Amy Olds.
And I'm Jonna McCooey, and we're back with Fairport Forward. We're excited to be back today. We're here to talk about a fun topic, tourism in our village. Tourism is a great thing from an economic development perspective, but it also has to be balanced in a way that suits our village and feels right for our residents. We're excited to be joined with our guest, Katie from Visit Rochester.
Hi, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Great.
Welcome.
Thanks for coming. So like always, we're here because we did a survey as part of our DRI application. And one of the things that came out from that survey is the feelings from our residents around Fairport as a destination. And Fairport is a destination. It's hard to deny that. We have so many destination-worthy items. We're right there on the canal. We have the towpath as a recreational vehicle, whether you're a biker, a boater, or just like a shopper. You've probably come to Fairport, especially if you're listening to this podcast. So as that destination has risen on the radar, we want to make sure that the feelings of our residents and the needs of our village are balanced as we embrace that opportunity as a visitor destination. So let's get into the survey, Amy. What did our residents say? How are they feeling?
Sure. So I have a couple of real comments from the survey that I thought I would share, and I think this resonates and was a little overarching. One, need to make sure that we don't turn into a place where no one actually lives. That's a little
right.
And then this one I think was interesting. We are proud and love our village, but it's almost too popular. And I thought that was an interesting way that people are starting to feel that on occasion. I love that people love it, but how far does it go before we let it affect our residents negatively? And how do you balance that going forward? So that's, I think, what we'll get into today. And hopefully we'll get some insight from you, Visit Rochester, because I'm sure it's not just a Fairport concern, but a lot of our cute neighboring villages and towns as well in our region. What can you share, Katie, about any other thoughts you have about that balance that is so important to not losing yourselves in the tourist trap?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that Fairport as a destination is definitely somewhere that people come to visit for the charm and for the small town kind of feel of it and for the small businesses and everything that Fairport has to offer. So it's important to remember that tourism in Fairport specifically comes from a place of bringing the right tourists into the community and making sure that the people who come to visit the village know that they're there for the charm and the small community that Fairport offers and the canal access and kind of knowing that that doesn't have to be like a booming tourist town for it to still be a valuable place to come visit.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Yes. You said something interesting. Make sure you're bringing the right types of tourists. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, totally. So if there's someone who's coming in and looking for walkability or accessibility, waterfront activities, good small businesses, if they want to shop at a place like Mescalada or they want to go grab a drink at Iron Smoke, kind of that's the kind of energy that we're looking for. Someone who wants the vibe of just like a cozier kind of community without not necessarily like a big city tourist. So it's just someone who's looking for something a little more a little less bustling, maybe a little more focused around like small town activities and the kind of events and festivals that you guys offer, the small businesses that are kind of peppered around the Fairport Village. So I think it just comes down to knowing who you're targeting and making sure those people are seeing the value in Fairport Village.
Great.
Awesome. Yeah, the feelings are definitely tricky to balance because you hear about, for example, a resident might say, oh, Canal Days. I don't stay for Canal Days. I'm out of here for Canal Day week, the weekend of Canal Days. And so that's disruptive to them, that amount of folks coming in all at once. So to your point, maybe that's okay to embrace that a couple of times a year for some signature events. And it's so important that people learn about our community that way. But every weekend can't be like that.
Yeah.
Or you wouldn't want to live there. And it wouldn't be a home village for people.
Yeah. And that comes into the seasonality aspect of tourism also, because while Monroe County is an all four seasons kind of destination, there are certain times of the year where certain villages thrive and certain villages shine. So it's not meant to be like an overarching kind of come to Fairport all the time, always. It is going to focus around certain events and activities that are going to draw a lot of tourists in. And then there will be some seasons that are a little slower. But overall, tourism and residents really should work in tandem with each other and be two sides of the same coin rather than working in opposition.
I like that. Yeah, that's a great point. Our community is really engaged. That's why we're here today. And I can see your point about making sure you're attracting the right kind of tourist. And I think that for us, that means leaning into those unique qualities that make up Fairport. You mentioned the walkability, you mentioned the charm. So when we're promoting Fairport, even though you may hear about it as a hot spot or place to go out and have a great night out, I think our goals should be more on the promotion of those softer things, like great place to ride your bike down the canal or take a kayak, your first kayak lesson or experience with your family, and start to highlight those less popular, more everyday way of life things that you can visit for, because that's what our residents are doing there. That's why they want to live in the village, to enjoy the canal, to experience our charming village. And as you said, those are things that we should be promoting to our visitors as opposed to the latest hot restaurant destination, although those are great to have.
Yeah, I'm thinking about things like the Merchants Association having sip-in shops, or I think they're coming out with a new one that's like brunch timing.
Yeah.
In the new year, but maybe I wasn't supposed to drop that, but I think it's coming. And the idea that that's like right-sized for Fairport.
Yes.
It's right-sized tourism because it's also leaning into another one of our biggest strengths, some of our boutiques and shops, and it's not a giant IKEA. It's a walkable strip of cute little shops like Mescalata and Out of the Basement, and it's just like you can walk our mile strip and really get your chocolate, get your ice cream, get all your fun, and that's really cool, and it leans into our walkability too, and the canal.
Yeah, I saw one of our village trustees, Adam, posted a thing on LinkedIn, and he led with, "Do you want to take a boring walk?" No, I don't think so. Right? So people want things that are engaging as part of their experience. But talking about our Main Street and what we have to offer there, let's talk about some of the benefits of tourism and visitation, kind of on the real. We're here as an economic development office, and tourism is a real economic driver for Monroe County, for Rochester, and for our village in particular. So let's get into some of that. We know that it's good for our businesses, but can you tell us more about the real impact of those visitors and why we want to continue to attract them?
Yeah, totally. So overall, in Monroe County, the travel and tourism industry generates about $1.5 billion annually and around 18,000 jobs. So it's not a small number. And obviously that divvies up between different communities and villages like Fairport. But I think that with that investment coming in from tourist dollars, we're able to put a lot of that back into these communities and these villages to make sure that they remain places that people want to live and work and like experience life in. So it's kind of tourist dollars help to fuel the local economy of these villages and maintain the level of comfort and joy that people find in Fairport. So it kind of all works together, and it really is a cyclical kind of relationship between tourists coming in, them spending money at shops or riding the Colonial Bell or kind of doing these little local attractions, and then that money being funneled back into these communities to really form a place that people want to live.
Yeah, for sure. I always thought, on days when you think, oh, it's too crowded here right now in this moment, but then you think, geez, these are businesses and amenities that are here for the people that live here, couldn't survive on our business alone. Like we need those visitors to come and that repeat visitation so that the businesses and amenities that we love so much and that literally make our village character can remain successful. if Skips was only selling steaks to a handful of folks, we need the people that are coming a little further to come and get their awesome steaks from Skips.
Right. And further to that point, we saw some real evidence of that this summer. Unfortunately, we had a road closure right on our main street. And while we did our best to support our merchants through different programs and promotions and say Fairport is still open, it did deter visitation. And we heard that directly from our merchants. And in particular, the ones like right at the epicenter of that road closure, their business did suffer from that lack of visitation. So it's not in theory, it's right there in the evidence. Everyday visitation is just as important as the big festivals, the fun days, and the great seasons.
Are there any secondary effects that, beyond the obvious things that we're talking about that people like me might not realize?
One thing that comes to mind is I am pretty sure it's on average, without the revenue generated from travel and tourism, the average household in Monroe County would have to contribute around $650 more annually to subsidize that income we'd be losing.
There you go.
So we definitely, it's easy to, obviously, tourism and busy seasons to residents just look like traffic, and it's harder to get where you want to go. But overall, it is to the benefit of the people who live in those communities.
That's a really great highlight. You might not be thinking about how tourism is helping your community, but if we had to replace those tourism dollars with taxpayer dollars, you definitely would be thinking about it and thinking about other ways that we could raise those funds. So that's a really great call out. Thanks for that, Katie.
Yeah, and I think a lot of new businesses open too because they know that Fairport's going to gets the foot traffic. It just if I'm going to open up a new boutique and I'm maybe shopping the market around little, different neighboring towns, someone might select Fairport because we have already shown historic success and that balance there of folks coming and shopping at these places. And, they only help each other, filling in any vacancy gaps. To your point, the walk is fun. The walk isn't boring. And the less space you have between this destination and another, you don't want that space. You want it filled with other stuff to do and other places to swing into and grab your coffee here and then shop here and keep going and then walk the canal. And I just think it's more doesn't have to mean big and inappropriate. More can mean the right size.
Exactly. So that is a great segue into what's right for Fairport. We would love to hear your thoughts, Katie. You talked about it a little bit already in attracting the right kind of tourists. We like on this podcast to talk about the tools now, right? We talked about the feelings and some of the facts. Let's talk about some of the tools that we can use to make sure that we're maintaining that balance, because that's what's really important to our residents. They recognize the importance of tourism, and they welcome it as long as we're, again, being careful stewards of how we build that in our community. So help us with what are some of those tools to making sure we get it right and fair.
Yeah, I think that you guys kind of hit it right on the head with emphasizing the small business aspect of Fairport and the local charm, and that is promoting those things and putting them in front of the right eyes will help to bring those people into the community, and they will spend their dollars in the right places. And I think that is really the best tool that you guys have is all the local attractions and local events and local businesses, and everything that Fairport has going on is really the only tool that you need to promote an area like Fairport when there is so many, because you can go into Mescalata and have one distinct vibe in that store, and then you can go down the street and go into a different store and have a completely different experience, but you're still in one unified community. And I think that that's a really special thing about Fairport, and that is something that a targeted audience would appreciate about the area as well.
I like that. Another thing I think that the village does well is management of those larger scale events that we have. I think back to Canal Days, and some of the residents' frustrations can be tied to things like congestion. I can't plan to have my son's birthday party that weekend because there's no way I'm going to let my family park over here. And so parking, congestion, things as simple as crowd control, safety, trash removal. I think the village does an excellent job of staying on top of that in a way that just shows that we can handle it. We can handle those large events, and we could probably handle a little more. But I think that it's just a testament to the village, too, and the DPW and all their hard work.
Yeah, definitely. And further to that, that informs how they manage for the rest of the year, right? We've been talking about it's not just about the peak times, but the peak times teach us so much, right?
Yeah.
And all of the work around festivals informed the decision to build some permanent public bathrooms at Liftbridge Lane West, where Liftbridge Lane West. What was formerly a road has been turned into a pedestrian thoroughfare that leads right from the canal into our village. And adjacent to it are some really nice public bathrooms, right? We realize we have all this stuff going on in our village. That doesn't mean there aren't porta potties when there's a festival, but when big things happen, it helps inform what we do every day so we can better manage the big events, but the regular tourist and visitor flow. And then, of course, that helps us attract more people. And they go, Fairport's a place I want to go because guess what? I could even sit here by the canal, have a beverage, and then not have to go track down a bathroom because there's a public bathroom right there. And there's some place for me to park, and there's some place for me to keep my bike and explore in the village. So the work that we do for the big stuff informs our everyday activity.
And, it's also shown that we can handle some of the big stuff in a way that I know through the grapevine that there's been some exploration of an additional event in our immediate area that could potentially be a little more winter focused. So whether that can be further developed, it just kind of leans into that. We've shown already that we can handle that type of volume, and to maybe do something off season that is similar, that attracts a larger crowd, that we could handle that. And we have the capacity to handle that and to manage that well.
Definitely. So again, it's about balance. What we do for the slow days helps us get better for the busy days. And those busy days helps keep Fairport in mind for when it's slow.
Yeah. So remember for Canal Days this year, how exciting it was that I think it was it Channel 10 or what that came and broadcasted from the lift bridge. It felt cool. They looked the morning show.
Right. The Today Show. It was a kiss from Fairport. But then it makes you think about it when you're doing your Christmas shopping and you want to avoid the mall traffic and you go, shop local. Where can I do that? I can go to Fairport. And they had that cool little boutique that I visited at Canal Days. And I remember when I was at the Music Fest and I popped into this spot, and I'm going to go back there when my sister is visiting over the holidays for lunch. So again, the busy times are helping reinforce that visit Fairport in the everyday.
I saw some, in researching this episode, this sentiment spoke to me, and it's something we haven't quite hit on, but that residents are more supportive of the concept of tourism when they can see what it's supporting. And I didn't know if that was anything that you could speak to, but just that knowing what the tourism dollars and visitation is actually contributing to their community as a whole. You talked about some of those dollar figures, but is there anything else you could expand upon about that? Because I found it interesting.
That is a little bit of what we do at Visit Rochester with all the events around Monroe County that we promote. I think that is kind of a direct representation of what tourism dollars can help us accomplish in the county and in Fairport in general. I think that it's a good way to kind of just looking at all the things that are happening and being brought into Monroe County and into Fairport is a good example of what that revenue generated from tourism can really enable us to do. So in a more general sense, not so much numbers. But that's a good way to look at something and say, okay, we can do this because we've proven that people are interested in this and they will come if we have it.
That's great. So that's a really good reminder that it doesn't just have to be us in Fairport making visitors come and tourism happen. We've got a great partner with Visit Rochester here in Monroe County. Would love to hear what you guys find in a good partner from a community and what are ways, not just Fairport, but all communities can benefit from the services that Visit Rochester offers and help be a great partner to mutually attract tourism to our community.
Yeah, we have something at Visit Rochester called the Visitor Industry Council, and that is pretty much a group of 500 local businesses, as of right now, around 500. And we meet monthly and we kind of just talk about what's going on in the community and any updates that we have, and we kind of work together to make sure that we're all doing everything we can do to make sure that Rochester and Monroe County is the best place that it can be. So yeah, we're always looking for new members to join us, and yeah,
cool. So our Fairport local businesses could join that Visitor Industry Council.
Yes.
And be more connected to their broader community and hear from businesses like theirs that might be doing the same thing in another neighboring town, and share challenges and share tools and all those things. So how can they get in touch and get involved?
I think that the best way is to reach out to our membership department, which is going to be Elena Oyer and Greg LaDuca. They are our connection between Visit Rochester and our small business partners. So that is probably the best place to start, or just on visitrochester.com. There's a contact form that you guys can
Great.
fill out.
Visitrochester.com, and they can connect with Elena and Greg there.
Yep.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah. That is awesome. Yeah, what a great year it's been at Fairport. We were part of the bicentennial celebration for the canal. That obviously brought a huge onslaught of different events within our village. I think we just got statistics that bicentennial event day had about 2,000 people here. Almost 1,000 people toured the Seneca Chief when it was stationed here in the village. So good momentum we have going this year. We don't want to lose that as we go forward.
Yeah, it's interesting when you hear about numbers in Fairport, because if we're talking about just the village of Fairport proper, which we are, our population is about 5,400 people. So to have 2,000 people visit on one day, that's a lot. And then when you think about things like Canal Days attracts over 100,000 people in one weekend. Wow, think about the impact on our tiny village, the infrastructure, the resources. It's the same DPW staff that supports that village year round, and they're not staffed to support a town of 100,000 people. So they're really, again, working to strike a balance with what's the right level of support every day, and how do we use those same resources for those big spikes. But again, it's all about balance, what fits for our community, and making sure that we're not too focused on, let's focus on attracting more visitors, because we have to make sure we're preserving the things that make Fairport great for our residents. All of those small village things, walkability, character, and like you said, it's a cycle, because then that's what attracts people.
That's my favorite takeaway from today, was what you said about leaning into what we're already quote unquote famous for, or just leaning into our identity. And our identity is that canal town, canal village charm, the charm that everyone loves. We just had an episode on charm. So leaning into that and not trying to change who we are, but letting who we are guide what's appropriate.
Right. Great. Well, this has been such a great conversation. I hope everybody who is listening is going to come visit Fairport.
Yeah.
Yes, come to Canal Days and Music Fest, but come on a time when it's quiet. You can experience all the things that we've talked about today at your own pace, at your own time, and I promise you're going to have a great time. Thank you for coming today, Katie.
Thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.